Today is Sunday, the 25th of May, and here is my after church recap. So today's message is called That's Their Issue. And Bishop really honed in and focused in on the fact that our relationship with God is one-on-one. We hear from God personally, and sometimes God's going to send you on a mission. He's going to tell you to do something. He's going to tell you that something needs to happen. It's going to be between you and God. You're the one that's going to have to answer to God when you don't do it, when you don't obey, and when you're disobedient. And bottom line is, you're not going to answer to man when it's just you and God at the end. Having accountability is good. Being part of a church community is good. But you always need to remember that your approval should not come from man. You should not seek the approval of man, but rather the approval of God. She drove this message home by focusing on Acts 11. When Peter goes out to the Gentiles for the first time, and he goes to the Gentiles, and it's Cornelius, I think his name is, to go deliver the gospel because he had a dream where God said there's no impure animals, which was why y'all can eat pork now. When said like if there's no impure animals, go do the thing. No longer circumcision, you don't need none of that. There's no longer a separation. God is for everyone, and that's the thing. God is for everyone. Jesus is the great equalizer. He died for everybody. And, we need to get out there and spread the gospel. And so that's the message. And so I'm just going to go through a few of the main points that Bishop went through. Her first point was, there is something about the renewing of your mind that makes those who are still in the old way of thinking take issue with what God is doing in your life. So you know that thing, it's about relationship, one-on-one. God tells you a message. And the first point that she said to us was that obedience offends the comfortable. When you are obedient to God and you're doing things the way that God wants you to do them, it's going to offend the status quo. That's when she said Christianity and culture are going to clash. If Christianity and culture are on the same page, then somebody's compromising. Solomon much? And then her quote was, when you're truly following God, your steps may confuse people who are standing still. If you're moving, people that are standing still won't understand. Then she spoke about revelation requires renewal. And the quote was, the mind is the battleground where God either wins your obedience or your opinion wins the day, from Dr. Tony Evans. And then the last one was, you don't need permission. You don't need permission from anybody but God. If God says go, you go. You don't wait for nobody. You don't wait for people. You don't wait for somebody to tell you that, yes, this is really what God said. You can speak to people, but sometimes God tells you the message and just you. And when you have a relationship with God, when you check, you hear what God says and you check, does it go against his word? Does it go against anything in the Bible? Because God won't go against his own word. Then you go do it. Because sometimes God's going to speak to you. And then if what God wants you to do requires other people, God will speak to them too. Because God is a God of order. He's not a God of disorder. He's a God of order. He can confuse things. He can shake things up. But always remember that God is a God of order. Everything with God has an order. Everything has a process. And there is reasons for it. The more I study Solomon and David, the more I'm convinced. That process, that refining process, that silent moment, so that battling is part of the process. Then Bishop spoke about how, she spoke about how that renewing of your mind can't be renewed if you're not going through changes. If you're not changing, if you're not taking steps to change, renewing happens during change. So renewing is uncomfortable. Renewing your mind can't happen if you're not changing. If nothing is changing, but changing is painful, changing is hard, changing requires trust, because some of the times, we don't know what we're changing, all the steps as the changes are happening, and change is uncomfortable. That's today's message. Hope it touched you like it did me.